Friends, what's up? Welcome to the Deconstruction Zone. Emily, you and I were here.
We're here.
We're here, but it's going to look a little different now. We're going to try kind of a new vibe.
Strap in, honestly.
Strap in.
It's going to be wildly different.
So before we get into that, I do want to give we don't always do announcements, things that are going on in the podcast, but I do want to give a couple of those. First being, people know, hopefully, that we have a Patreon. So we just went to Ohio. We'll talk about that a little bit. We did this thing at Mount Union University, live podcast, one voice speaker series for them. Super cool. But we had some extra content that you can find in our Patreon Behind the Zone podcast.
Yeah.
So for anyone that's looking to find that, I think I'm going to try to put that in the episode notes.
But can I say it gets kind of juicy?
It gets juicy. So here, I don't think we lie or pull any punches.
No.
I won't say, I don't think we lie. We don't lie.
We do not lie.
But there is a little bit more of a vibe of what's going on, not just in deconstruction, but in our whole lives. Would you say that's probably right?
Yeah, and I do think there's something, we say all the time, as long as it's behind a paywall, it just feels a little more there's some buy-in, and so we kind of are a little more, not more honest, but more vulnerable maybe?
Yeah. It costs $5 a month to hear Emily's deepest, darkest secrets.
And just hear about my personal life. So
it's a lot of that. So we have, so that's happening. We just did this event. Also, if you work at a university, go to university, we would love to come out and do it again. I thought that was a ton of fun.
It was a blast.
You did about 10 minutes of comedy. Dustin did 10 minutes of comedy. I did a short talk, and we did a live podcast and just hung out with people afterwards. I thought it was super fun.
And can I just say, that was Dustin's third time doing stand-up, and he, crushed it.
Yeah.
So Netflix, also, if you're watching, call up Dustin.
The human Netflix, if you're watching, call us up right now. So I thought that was super fun. I'll also say, we haven't pushed this a ton, but merch,
yes.
Our Teespring account, you can also find our link tree. I kind of forgot about it, but we hopped on the plane to go to Ohio, and you had one of my favorite designs I made for the Deconstruction Zone.
Love it.
I forgot that I made that, and I was like, "That's a dope sweater." You're like, "It's ours." I loved it.
I know, and it's blue, so it kind of gives me Deconstruction Zone vibes. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Why do you think blue is deconstruction-y?
Because that's our logo color.
Oh, that's true. I like that.
It was about to be really deep. It makes me so sad.
I thought you meant deconstruct. Yeah, I'm with you now. Okay,
sorry.
So
but get our merch. It's really, there's a lot of really cute stuff.
There's some cool stuff in there. So, but so we're gonna try to do things a little different. Not because we feel you haven't fully deconstructed, you haven't reconstructed. Our shift has nothing to do with where you are in the process, but trying to continue to keep content interesting.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna kind of break up every episode into, first off, what we've always done, which is kind of a check-in with you, the Emily check-in. What's going on, kind of have some conversations.
Yeah.
Also, we get a lot of messages. We're getting more and more of email, of Instagram, a lot of TikTok stuff. So we want to do a little bit of just kind of the DM section, what are people having to say to us, that kind of thing. And then not only Christian stuff and deconstruction stuff, though I think that's going to be fun, but recommend what are you consuming right now? And it might be comedy. It might be a book.
Ooh,
It might be whatever, but just a chance to be here's what we're consuming. And we think it might be helpful for you, even if it's just to laugh or if it's to learn.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in that because I do think we talk a lot about how deconstruction can be exhausting. And so I listened to our last episode about whole assing your spirituality. And I just kept being I'm just so tired. And I was listening to that. And I was we also need breaks and to enjoy things. And so I'm excited for all three of those.
I love that.
Sections.
So before we get into the Emily check-in, I do want to say, let's do an Ohio check-in. We just got back. The episode will have already come out, but you and I are recording before that's come out. But we landed.
We're actually in the airport right now.
Not in the airport, but landed.
We do lie on this podcast all the time.
Turns out we do now. But we got back. Feels not long ago. I feel we all that was a lot of time together for the three of us. I thought it was fun.
Were you sick of us?
I was not. Well, we can get into my side of things later.
Because you just sighed really loud. That was a lot of time with you guys.
But how did you feel it went? Both in terms of the content, but also just like the time to hang out. And like, even you had more conversations, I feel like, with people afterwards than I did.
Yeah.
So just like give a little synopsis. Like, how'd you think it went?
I mean, I had the most conversations because I'm objectively the most charming of the three of us.
That's true.
So they were like, don't talk to these guys. Yeah. Anyway.
I kept trying to talk to people. They kept running away.
Just go eat the chicken nuggets or something. Anyway.
They did have a pretty good spread, I will say. Like, it was all from, I talked to Tim Morrison, shout out. He's the chaplain at the University of Mount Union. Really cool guy. Like, he chauffeured us from the airport, took us back. Like, he just hung out with us. We had a few meals with him. It was so fun. He said that was all from their cafeteria. I was like, I did not eat that good from my cafeteria.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Amazing.
It was good.
But yeah, I had a really good time. I think this is kind of like weird to say, but it was kind of fun feeling like a celebrity for a few days. Like I felt like we felt just like the biggest deals, and like our podcast isn't that big. Like, like we're getting some traction and stuff, but it's like I felt like I was like, yeah, we're here, guys. Like, I thought everyone was gonna stop us. Like,
should you tell people how you felt when you ran into the sandwich board sign with our poster on it?
but I didn't play it cool, like, at all. Like, I wasn't like, yeah, you should have asked us here. Like, I saw the sign and I was like, oh my God, it's a sign with our name on it. And he was like, yeah, I made that a while ago. And Dustin was like, you have to chill out. He was like, play it cool. So that was it made me feel very special, if that's kind of a vain answer. But I also really enjoyed like getting to talk to Tim and getting to talk to people, especially. We didn't really think of this topic until we got there, I feel like, but we decided to talk about college life and deconstruction. Yeah. And I was really glad that we talked about that because, one, obviously it was very relatable to most of the people that were there because it was mostly college students, but also just like helped me be reflective, and then them coming up and be like, I kind of want to go to the bar after this. And I was like, freaking go. Like, I don't know, which I don't know if that's the most helpful thing I could have said, but it was interesting to just kind of navigate very real world. Like, they're like, I take my faith seriously, but sometimes I feel very like confined by religion.
Yeah, I had pretty much planned out what I was going to say, and I mostly stuck to it, but I kind of had an idea of what we were going to do podcast wise, and I loved, and it really was like maybe an hour and a half beforehand, you were like, we should talk about this. Yeah. And I thought it was the most engaging to the group, and if you just listen to it, like at the end of it, a girl asked like something to the effect of like, hey, I pretty much want to party, but I want to be a Christian too, was kind of what I thought, like the crux of the question. To your answer was savage, but
I thought it was lovely.
I thought it was lovely. But I was like, I think nothing sums up the Christian college experience more than like, because essentially what she was saying was like, I want to be a human. Like, I want to be fun. I want to be like all my friends at Mizzou or Ohio State for them or whatever, right? But I also like want to love Jesus, and like if I do one group kicks me out, and if I do the other group kicks me out. And I was like, that was like she displayed the tension in a question better than anyone and we had a lot of good questions. But that one I was like, yeah, like I get that because I felt that in college too. Like, how am I not a nerdy Christian? Also, how am I not a hypocritical Christian? Like, I thought it was great.
And I, on the other hand, in college, lived like both extremes. And so it was interesting to talk about that because I was like, no partying ever. Oh my gosh. Have you heard about the one frat party I went to? This is important.
I think now's the time to say
this is it. I went to one frat party my first weekend of college. And then afterward, I was like, that was a sin. Like, whatever. I did drink underage. So can I say that on the podcast? It's fine. But I was going around shaking people's hands. Like, I was like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. Like, what's your major? Like, I was just I thought it was just like a social gathering.
Like a networking event for you.
And people are like just passed out on the floor from just having vodka and Powerade and like drinking beer pong or playing beer pong. I'm super cool.
Yeah, I think they play it.
Yeah, drinking beer pong. But I was like, so this is like not my scene. Everyone's like, why are you trying to like, I was like, so what's like your dream? And they were like, why are you asking me this at the frat party? Lady. Anyway.
So we did this. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I think we hope to do it again. Like, I thought the podcast format was really cool. I loved getting a chance to like share like a little bit and like talk more about deconstruction. I think oftentimes you don't have like spaces that get to like reclaim the goodness of that. But also I was telling Annie when I got home, I thought the comedy was like, it wasn't the most spiritual part of it, but it was the most, like, I think the students and the adults, like people in the room that were like, they were ready to hear something. Like they were disarmed in a way that maybe
I
they
was
wouldn't
just
have.
about to say.
Oftentimes you just like, hey, here's this event and we're going in. And it was like, let's hear some jokes. Like I told Andy, I was like, I've never I've never like preceded the talk about anything spiritual where no less than 15 minutes earlier someone talked about their tits. And I was like, I just like, it's just not something I've ever done before.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the people, even there was a, like, she had to be 75.
Yeah.
And I assume her husband in the wheelchair, like they were jamming on it.
Yeah, until I ended with a wheelchair joke.
You did end with a wheelchair joke, but
that's my closer, man.
It's your closer.
Your fault. You're in a wheelchair. I didn't mean that's not funny.
Well, be a better comedian. So, so that was fun.
I also just had a really fun time with you and Dustin. Like, I just like,
cool.
There was so much that we didn't get recorded that. I just like loved the conversation with you guys, and I'm just super thankful for you.
Yeah, I know. We set out to like, we're gonna record all of this, and like we had some of the best conversation, and just we should have had lav mics on the whole time.
Yeah.
Except for on the plane when this wouldn't make anywhere, but on the plane we get on and like we're just yucking it up. We're talking, and we didn't put.
It's 8 a.m.
Yeah,
it's
8 a.m. We didn't put mics on because it was so loud, and I look over like I'm in the middle seat. By the way, they said no one is allowed to sit in the middle seat, and these two made me be the only person on a plane of hundreds of people to sit in the middle seat. And I'm like not a huge rule follower, but I was freaking out.
He looked like he was in timeout or something.
Like, yeah, I didn't feel good about it. But I look forward through the chair and I see this woman, and like, you know, like people that are a little older, like they're like, we're gonna make the text size as big as possible. So I'm like, I can read this thing from 100 yards away.
Yeah.
And she's like, I hate sitting in front of loud talkers on airplanes. And I'm like, I'm pretty sanctified. I feel like and I was like, me too, like out loud.
Yeah. We didn't know what
and you guys
he was
like, what are you guys talking
to?
about? And then I said something else a little more snarky, but and then it was like weird the rest of the flight. But we got no episodes. But we had a lot of really good conversation. Like I thought the whole time. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was cool. So that's our Ohio check-in.
Ohio.
But Emily.
Danny.
Life. Faith.
Liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Relationships.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's time for our Emily check-in.
You want to get the 411. Is that what that is?
Is that what we're going to call that?
I don't know.
How we doing? Like in across the board, how we doing?
You know, honestly, it's been a week at school. We don't need to get into this, but it was just the kids just haven't been showing up to school, so that just like sucks, honestly. Okay. So that's just like, kind of just makes me sad. Other things to know about me right now? I don't know. Recently went through a breakup. But actually, like, classic Emily, am I right? And obviously that was like really hard and working through it, and really appreciated like talking to you two about it in Ohio and things like that. But at the same time, like, in a lot of ways, I feel like I am all of a sudden I have some of my like margin or bandwidth back to like process these things with a little more energy instead of being like, I don't know, because I was like overwhelmed, like there was a lot going on, and so without like getting too much into it, like a lot of my time was taken from that, and so it's like it's been sad and grieving it and like wrestling with God in that, but at the same time, like it's also just been cool to kind of like have energy to like write and think about things, and so I think it's been sad, but like overall I'm thankful that it happened.
Yeah. Can I say, like, based on having energy, like, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So you, for the first time in months, were back at the well. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I really wanted to.
And it was our last Sunday at the well, or at Good News for the well. So, like, we're leaving Good News Brewing Company. And but you haven't been back since you preached. And so, like, and I knew you had already told me you were coming back. But to see you walk through the door was, like, it was so wonderful. Like, I saw so many people. Like, just so happy to see you.
Yeah.
But for you, like, what was that whole experience like?
I mean, it was a great experience. Like, I'm not quite where I would say, like, I'm back for good, bitches. But, like, like, but it was a really, like, it was a very good experience, like so sweet that everyone just was like so excited to see me and hugged me and wanted to know how I was, and it just reminded me how like loved I am in that space.
Yeah.
But also I really wanted to be there because like that the well means so much to me, but also like I just feel like the marking of a location did kind of mark the end of a specific season.
Sure.
And it's a season that like was so powerful and impactful to me, as like that's the first place I ever preached a sermon. Like it's the only place I ever preached a sermon. But like those are like huge moments, and
Yeah.
I just really was like, I want to go there. I want to like honor this season and this place. And it was a really good experience. Like it was good to be there, and I feel like the community aspect was there. Like orthodoxy wise, I think I was like, I'm still not sure, but it's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I ask you, like, did you have like one moment that like this was the best part of it?
Best part of it. I just like, I don't really have one moment, I think, but it's just like, I felt like everyone was talking to me as if I never like left. Other than
Cool.
like we're happy to see you again. Like we missed you.
Other than the where the hell have you been part of it?
But I just felt like very, like it just felt like we picked up where we left off in a sense. That's not a super specific moment, but that was just like a really special feeling, I would say. Does that make sense?
No, it's great.
Yeah.
Do you think, because I think there's a lot of people that are in deconstruction that like, I'd love to go back to, and maybe they didn't have the same experience, right? Like us.
Right.
But like want to step back into a church. Was there anything that was hard about it? Like the message, songs, just the space? Like, was there anything that was like you didn't expect to evoke
Great
a
question.
negative emotion, maybe?
Nothing evoked a negative emotion. Like there were, I would say like with some of the songs or whatever, like I was just like, oh, I'm not sure I'm like 100% getting on board with this, but like I very much believe that like worship is a space where you don't have to like agree with all the words. It's a place where you can ponder who God is, and so like that was like fun. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, I wasn't like triggered, but
Yeah.
but like, and the well is a pretty not triggering place. Like if you're gonna go back to church, like I feel like that would be a place to go. Okay. But also
I'm gonna put that on our website.
if there was any place to come back,
Yeah,
take some shots and sit down. And I would say I think the hard stuff was stuff that it was things that I assumed other people were thinking about me and not things that were actually real. And I think that's really important because I was like on my way there and I was like, oh my God, people are going to be like.
And you went out. Did you all go with Austin and Aaron? Like you guys all rode together?
Mm-hmm, we rode together.
It's a long drive. Like you have a lot of time to think about. Like, did you get more nervous the closer you got?
No, I was like, it was kind of like sweet. Like I like when we were doing the drive, and I was like, I haven't done this drive in a while. Like I remember this drive every Sunday. It was overall like a very, and I'm not saying every like first time back at church is like a positive experience, but overall it was really positive. I think I just worried that people would be like,
where the hell were you?
Or like, I can't believe I'm just gonna I was very worried that people are gonna be like, well, now she broke up with her boyfriend and now she's like back with God. Like I was I think like I've really been struggling with feeling like that's people's perception, and it's like
that's interesting. I wouldn't even make that connection, but I can get that.
It's like I was like, is this too soon to come back? Like, do I need to wait longer just to like prove that it's not because of that? Like, but that's just my own stuff that I'm wrestling through, and I know my own experience, and I know like how much that plays a part and how much that doesn't. But because it's always the worst when someone like completely checks out when they start dating someone and then they break up and then they're like, what's up, everybody? Yeah. And I didn't want to be that person.
I do get that, but you left, and not in a negative way, but you pulled back prior to.
Yes,
him.
I did. It just was the timing matched up in a way that I was like, I just feel like this could be perceived some type of way, but no one said that or thought anything of it.
Yeah,
that was just my own stuff.
That's interesting. This Easter, I was preaching about how everyone should go back to church after they break up with their boyfriends, but scrap new sermon. New sermon.
That's what Jesus' resurrection is about.
Probably not. So as far as like just checking in with you, like, are there any other like, I don't know, like, I mean, because I feel like and what we're trying to do now is like, we're trying to kind of condense this section, essentially what every episode has been thus far, which is an Emily check-in. So we'll talk about a few more things in the next couple of like bits we'll go through, but like, is there anything that like just big rock that's being moved or thing inside you, like, hey, I want to chat about this, like stuff in your deconstructions going on?
I'm gonna say no. I feel like that was like a good, solid
Cool
check-in of what it was, and I think things might come up as we talk through other things, but
yeah. Okay, so the next thing that we want to try to do, and I think at some point we'll have like cool, like we might like have something like pop on the screen, like
email corner.
Yeah, something like that.
Why?
Dustin says no, but we want to
just sing it every time.
We want to do some level of like emails, DMs, like something that like we get so much content, and it kind of comes and it goes, right? So sometimes we get like just a ton of messages, and then other times it's like they pause, right?
Yeah.
But we have this huge backlog of both audio messages, which if you like go to our anchor.fm/deconstruction zone pod or deconstruction, one of the two, you'll see like a button on there for doing voice messages. Like shoot us a voice message. Like we get a ton of those and love them. Also, our Instagram is the best place to shoot us stuff. Obviously, email to deconstructionzonepod@gmail.com. It is really, really great. But we want to make a point to like maybe 1 to 3 a week, just like dive into.
Yeah. I just feel the need to say this right now. I also get a lot of personal DMs, and I sometimes get a responding and sometimes not, but know that like I value them when I get them. But my toxic trait is if I open something, then it's like out of my brain forever.
Exactly.
But just don't take that personally.
Actually, this is no, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but someone messaged me. It was someone who was really pumped about the church being inclusive at the Well, and I didn't respond fast enough, and I've never got so much hate and anger, like just out of control, like blew my mind. And I responded, and I was like, "Hey man, like I'm so sorry," like, and they blocked me before I could ever respond back because I didn't respond back, and it was like a couple hours. But that's cautionary tale to know we read them and we want to get back to them.
Yeah,
but it's maybe not in the next.
But
30
sometimes
minutes.
the stars have other things going on.
All right, man. You went to Ohio once. You gotta chill out. You gotta chill out with this. But so we got a message from, I'm gonna say from Patrick. I don't want to.
Yeah.
He said it was okay to share it, but I didn't want to give his full name. But he lives in Georgia and kind of going through some deconstruction stuff, and shares a lot of his different story. But I wanted to share like this part. He said the big thing that made things come crashing down for me was the continued hate and bigotry that kept surfacing as Christian love. I also, during this time, came to terms with being bisexual and being genderqueer. The lack of acceptance within the Christian church was really a catalyst for me and my wife choosing to take a step back from the church and from that community. And so, I mean, there's a couple of, we could go a lot of different ways with that, but maybe like just kind of initial thoughts as you hear that, like from Patrick, like what initially pops into your mind, like just hearing that message.
Initial thoughts is the idea of like Christian love being hate and bigotry. I think that line really stood out to me because I hung out with my friend the other day, and it was a great conversation, but she said something. She was like, like, I just feel like the main thing Jesus did was like love people and like attune to people. And he was like, and she was like, but now that sounds like she was like, but that can lead to progressive Christianity.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, man, don't do that. Like, I was like, I didn't say that, but I do think there is this false sense of and we've said this before, but like if it's not harsh enough and if it doesn't like hurt you enough, then it's probably not challenging and it's probably not the gospel. When in reality, like I do think love sometimes includes saying hard things. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, Jesus says hard things to people. Like he told a friggin' rich young ruler to like sell all of his stuff. Like that's not like a chill thing to say.
Yeah, he also told people don't sin anymore, which is hard. Like, so he's calling out the things they did, right? But he also says, right? What did he say? Like,
my yoke is easy and my burden. Oh, neither do I condemn you. Yeah.
Yeah. But did we talk about this in Ohio?
Finish each other's sandwiches.
Did we talk about this in Ohio? The burden, the yoke. We like recently talked about
it on the whole Lasting Spirituality episode.
Oh yeah. All right, then screw that. Like we're done with it. But I do think
never talk about it again.
I think it's interesting, right? Like both sides of that. Like calling truth out is not unloving. The way we do it can be unloving. But also, I think there's such an interesting like dynamic to be like, Jesus wasn't like, this is gonna suck. He didn't say you weren't going to have suffering. He didn't
Right.
say that things weren't going to be hard, but he didn't say the Jesus side of it was going to be hard. And I think I worked at a church in Portland, and there was a song they used to sing, I guess, and you may know it. It's like they'll know we're Christians by our love. It's like
Oh yeah.
yeah. I've never heard it before, but
they will know we are Christians by our love, by our love.
Yeah. So that was a song.
And we have like
And
a clap soundtrack after that.
and they like would talk about how that was triggering for a lot of people, because people would be like, they would use this phrase, "I'm speaking truth and love to you," and there was no love in it.
Right.
And there was probably not even 100% truth in it. And I think so when I hear Patrick's story, it's like, yeah, I get that. Like, people being like, I'm going to call out this thing, and it's just out of love, brother. And it's like, no, what you're trying to do is you're trying to like get me to get into your camp. But also, it's like, if I was like beating my wife, right, then you speak truth to me, and like
Absolutely.
there's legit sins and like legit things that need to be spoken to with truth. And I think that's the hardest thing in this whole conversation is the conservative and progressive Christians are looking at a different set of rules. And so like we argue over like, well, I'm speaking truth and love. And it's just like we're having different conversations, you know, like.
Yeah. And it's like, well, that truth that you like think like, well, this is for sure. Like, people read the Bible different ways on things like that. And like, I also, as I was thinking about it too, I feel like you've sometimes gotten the critique of like, I remember our friend Aaron was like, "Do you have a gay brother or something?"
Yeah, Aaron's fine. They're both fine. They're like, you got to stop like talking about this on TikTok. They're like, we're gay and we get it. Like, talk about something else on TikTok.
But what I want to say is like, it's experiences like that, like Patrick's, in my opinion, that makes it somewhat of a necessity to be so vocal about like such a specific issue like LGBTQ inclusion, because so many people have like gotten the, what do you call it? Bait and switch.
Yeah.
Or just the blatant like, who you are is bad. And so I think like, I know some people are like, you overemphasize it, but I think it's important to emphasize because it really hurts people.
Yeah.
And it's something people assume going into a church space, that like if they're gay, they're not accepted.
Yeah, and I think like the overcorrection isn't bad, right? Like, I think we have to overcorrect.
I agree.
But if our life is all the overcorrect, then I think that becomes the issue, right? Like, if it's
Absolutely.
we've gone so far the other direction.
Yeah.
And that's the tension I always hold as a pastor, is like, because I do think we're so much more in the middle. But I've like, to your point, like I have to go really far to like try to reclaim some of this stuff. But like, I also like, I don't only care about the LGBTQ issue, but I just know that like I have a lot of friends in that community that are hurt and personally don't believe it's a sin.
Yeah.
Like, and so I have to communicate at a higher level than I maybe would about a normal thing.
Well, because even I feel like how much that you communicate it, I feel like there are still TikTok comments that are like, "Don't fall for the trap." Like, and so like,
yeah, all the time.
So you can say it's an overcorrection, but it's still like, I mean, it's work to convince anyone that any church could be accepting of that issue.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if this is actually Patrick's question. Was it a question?
Well, I think his was more, so it wasn't really a question. I just kind of wanted to share his thing. Yeah. But I think to your thing of walking down the truth and love thing, I think is the most like interesting thing for a lot of people, because I think people going through deconstruction are wrestling with that. Like,
yeah.
Like whether it's sexuality, whether it's whatever that it might be, like there's that side of it. Also, they said another thing of it was the bigotry side of it, like not just towards himself, but towards other people. Like, and this is, I'm reading a little bit of subtext into this, but like whether it's gender inequality or racism or any of those things, like I know a lot of people that have walked away from the church because they've been like, well, George Floyd was murdered and the church was like, was coming to him or whatever. Like, I mean, that'd be a pretty intense take for a church to make, but like there have been churches that have made pretty hard stances on like racial things that seem to not be, they shouldn't be conversation starters. They should be like, how are we not all in agreement on like the fact that this was unjust, right? And so there's a lot of people I think that have left the church because of that kind of stuff too.
Well, and that's something that's very frustrating. And I'm sure you feel this frustration too, but it's like, I feel like both sides are criticized for like over politicizing the church, but sometimes, and I get that this is like maybe a biased opinion, but to me, it's like a lot of the stuff that like progressive Christianity is fighting for the inclusion. I mean, I don't think it should be political. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm with you. I also think there's a line between over politicizing and under politicizing. Like,
Ooh.
I think that there has to be like some level of like there's tension in this. Like, I would never come up and be like, vote for X candidate or be this party. One of the things I love about the Well is we have people across the board on parties and candidates. So I love that. But like, I think the idea that like Jesus wasn't political would be a misrepresentation. He wasn't, I don't know if he was partisan, but I think he was political.
I have a great line for you that I heard in a sermon.
Wasn't my sermon.
No.
Don't want to hear it.
It was a great line, so I'm kidding.
Oh,
good burn, though.
That was good. That like almost passed.
It was good, and
really
then I
good.
was like,
that was pretty good.
But the line is Jesus refuses political simplicity, but he also refuses political complacency.
That's pretty much what I said, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying it succinctly.
Yeah. No, I think that's really, really good. Like,
yeah.
And things are more complex, right? And like,
absolutely.
But they're also more they're intertwined. They're not simple. Like, I think all of that. I think all that's true.
Yeah. So I think we fixed Patrick's issue.
I don't really fix his issue, but I will say, so for us, like kind of moving forward in these episodes, like I would say, reach out to us on Instagram, shoot us an email at deconstructionzonepod@gmail.com. If it's not that, I'm sure Dustin will put the real email on the screen. Also, I didn't say this earlier, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. The video is killer. Like if you don't watch the YouTube, you're missing out.
Yeah. I don't think I'm subscribed. I'll subscribe.
Subscribe to the YouTube. But if you're not, I think subscribe to it. For no other reason other than like, I think it's kind of interesting. I've said this before. Like I have a lot of podcasts I watch and I'm like, who the hell is sitting down to watch a 2-hour episode on YouTube? And ours are 30-ish. This one's going to be a little longer, but I found a podcast I finally love, like that love. And they're an hour and 50 minutes almost every time. And I can't stop watching it. Yeah. And not to say this is that, but like if you're like interested, but if this is that, watch. But I think there is something interesting about like the dynamic of it. And so like if you don't subscribe, follow the YouTube, please do, because it's just interesting content. Also helps other people find it. Like the more people that connect in those sorts of ways. We have like almost 600 people on kind of a rotating thing that watch on or listen to the audio. And so it's like we would love to have that on the YouTubes as well.
I will tell you, we were recently mentioned on another podcast.
Were we?
Is my students' podcast. It's called Real Talk.
I like that.
And where they get high and talk about things.
I love
it. And he goes, Miss Elle, I totally dissed your podcast on my podcast. Because
he dissed it.
Yeah, he dissed it. He hasn't really watched it, but it comes up on my screen if they go to YouTube because like it's logged in as me, and so it'll like pop up. Yeah. And the one was like, is Emily an atheist? And now it's like a running joke in my class. They'll be like, is Emily an atheist? And I'm just like, shut up, everybody. But he was like, yeah, on my podcast, I was like, the Deconstruction Zone, F the Deconstruction Zone. Like just said, I was like, what is your problem with it? And he was like, I don't know. I just needed to diss something. So don't listen to the Real Talk podcast. It has not been published yet.
I love that. You just destroyed a 16-year-old's dreams.
I mean, yeah, listen to it. It might be interesting. But
anyway. All right. So ending up, we want to do recommendations, like things like we're reading, watching, listening to, things that are funny, formative, or just like a break from real life or whatever. And so I'll start. Yes. I don't know if you have anything, but so when I was in college, I read this book. It was called A New Kind of Christian by Brian McLaren. And I just went to a conference, like a progressive Christian conference. Ooh. Maybe like a month ago, and I saw he was one of the speakers. Like, oh, not only is this guy still alive, but he's still relevant. I was blown away because I read this guy a long time ago, and not only did he crush it, because you got one of his books when we were in Ohio. Actually, that was he wrote the book.
Should I say Christian?
Yeah, so he wrote that book. Okay. You should read it. But it So a new kind of I just like restarted, so I'm only like a chapter into it again.
Yeah.
But I'm like interested about like when I read it was so provocative,
Mm.
and it was like on this cutting edge of kind of what we would have called postmodernism or whatever, and the emerging church, like that kind of stuff. And I just remember being like, this is interesting, and so I'm interested to read it. I want to see if like some extra stuff comes into this as we talk about it, as I kind of think back to essentially where I was when I was not far from your age, and to kind of unpack some of that. So A New Kind of Christian, Brian McLaren. I'm reading it. I would recommend it though. Anyone that's looking for a good book to read. It's a little older, but I loved it the first time I read it. I think I'm going to like it the second time I go back around on it.
So were we just giving one recommendation?
I only have one.
Okay. Can I have two?
Second recommendation, if you haven't ever watched The Haunting at Hill House, you should watch that.
I haven't watched it.
It's the greatest TV show ever made.
Okay.
It's part of kind of an anthology, might be the wrong word, but it's like kind of like American Horror Story.
Okay.
And then it's like they have all these different series, but Haunting at Hill House, Haunting at Bly Manor, they're the same actors and creator. Greatest show ever made. And I would say Haunting at Hill House, the greatest story in a horror format of the gospel ever made.
Love it.
I bawl every time, and now when I watch the first episode, knowing how it ends, I can't cry, like stop crying almost every episode. It's so good, and it has it's not religious at all.
Yeah,
but it's one of the best shows I've ever seen.
I love that.
So I felt bad I only had one, so that's my second. Haunting at Hill House. Everyone should watch that show. It's so good.
Okay, my book recommendation is one that I read a few years ago, but I thought. Okay, I'm just going to say it and then talk about it. It's called Ella Minnow P.
Savage.
Like Ella, like the name. It's like a woman's name. And it's about this society where they like, the guy like invented the alphabet or something. Or not the alphabet, but like the alphabet sentence that has all the letters. Like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And then the letters start falling and they start outlining using those letters. And so the whole novel is people writing letters to each other, but then all of a sudden like they can't use Q. And so then they're like working around it, and it's like but I think it is a scathing commentary on like biblical literalism.
Ooh, interesting.
Because it's all these people being like, well, I think that the alphabet gods are telling us that we can't use Q anymore. And someone's like, maybe the glue just stopped working. And they like lose all their words. It's a very easy read because the letters get shorter and shorter as letters get outlawed.
Is the book written with only the letters that are left available?
I mean, yeah, because they're, it's like letters and then letters, like notes to each other.
Oh my God. That's so interesting.
I loved it. Okay. And I think
so it's called L. Like
Ella.
E-L-L-E.
Ella, E-L-L-E-L-L-A, minnow, like the fish, and then P, like the vegetable.
By who? Do you know?
Crap, I don't.
Okay.
There's only one book called Ella Minnow P, so.
That's probably true.
But highly recommend it. You can borrow my copy if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to read it.
Okay. Great. I also recently watched a new stand-up comedy special called Sap by Mae Martin.
Okay.
Phenomenal, like just wonderful and beautiful, and the idea of sap is like explained at the end, and it's so sweet. But also I actually really want to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, not right now because you haven't watched it, but she's like 35 and you're like almost 35, and so
pretty close.
But I was relating a lot to all the things she was saying about her childhood, and I was like, I bet Danny is gonna
you mentioned
like,
this
right
when we
there.
got on the plane, right? Like you just started it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's fun. It's sweet. It's vulnerable. I thought it was a fantastic comedy special that I would highly recommend. Sap by Mae Martin.
Okay. Well, this has been fun.
This has been fun.
I kind of like this new format that we're going at. Like, I think it helps maybe break it up a little bit. I think, but also I think we went longer than we ever go, which I think is kind of fun. So,
we also talked about Ohio for a hot minute.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a hot minute. All right. So with that in mind, I will not abandon this question. What is your word of encouragement for our people listening? Like, what do you want to send them out with?
I'm just like thinking about like recommendations and that idea of just like, I would just say like, and I feel like I've said this as my word of encouragement, but it's just still feeling true of just like take breaks, take care of yourself, because ultimately that is like one of the most productive things you can do on this journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that being said, do you want to give a word of encouragement?
Kind of similar actually. Like, so I can easily fall in the trap of not consuming other content that isn't like just work related. So like books or whatever. And so like, even though I'm reading this book, like it feels a little bit like a respite, and like watching like new shows and stuff like that. And so I think like clinging on to your just personality and humanity is important in this journey. Like we're not just functions of what we produce. Like we should have other things that are fun and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I dig what you said.
Okay. Well, as always, thanks for listening and embrace the journey.